Hello fellow booktubers, my name is Lauren, you're watching Dreams Books Courage, and today I am doing a Top 5 Wednesday video. This one is all about the most frustrating characters. And in YA books especially, I feel like the characters are just meant to frustrate me, especially in terms of romance. It just seems like there's always something stopping these characters from being together, and usually it is themselves. But there are definitely other ways that characters can be frustrating to me, and so I'm mentioning quite a few of those ways in this video. And so in the 5th place spot we have Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet from Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And as you can guess from the book title, if you haven't yet read this novel, this is all about Pride and Prejudice. And that definitely affects a lot of this book. Darcy has too much pride while Elizabeth has too much prejudice, and that kind of keeps them separated for a lot of the time. And whenever Darcy and Elizabeth finally realize that they are meant to be together, it still feels like something is stopping that from happening, and I don't want to go into too much details of how their romance really comes about, but it is very frustrating whenever they even know their feelings for each other and yet they are still not together. I bet a lot of frustrating romance characters, especially in YA books, actually originated from this novel, so this definitely deserves a spot on this list. And in the 4th place spot we have Lincoln from Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. I really enjoyed reading this book, but I was frustrated a lot throughout it because Lincoln fell in love with a girl and yet he didn't even know her really. Because Lincoln fell in love with a girl through her emails, and yet he never truly met her within those emails. He never went and talked to her even though he was in love with her. They even work in the same office building, and yet he was afraid to share his feelings or even talk to her, and I was just so frustrated that he wouldn't make a move or talk to her or do anything. Although I really did enjoy this book and I feel like the romance aspect towards the end was resolved, I was very frustrated while I was reading it. And in the 3rd place spot, we have Sydney from the Bloodline series by Rochelle Mead. And my frustration with Sydney did not last the entire series, but it's definitely within this book especially. All of her life she was trying to keep that human world apart from the vampire world. And also with that, she was trained to be against the vampire world and just be very prejudiced against them and their magic. And so whenever she started developing feelings, not just of romance, but also of just friendship, she really tries to keep herself away from those feelings and not become too close to these people she actually really likes, and she discovers that they really are just like humans, and yet she still tries to keep her distance from them, and that's just very frustrating to me, especially having read the Vampire Academy series before this series and just knowing how great these people really are, and that Sydney really couldn't see past her prejudice at first. In the 2nd place spot we have Amy from Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and you could also say that Nick is also a very frustrating character, but I felt like Amy was the most frustrating character of all. She's pretty much insane throughout this novel, although I don't want to really go into any detail as to why or how she's insane, but it was just very frustrating that you can't really change anything about her. And your image of her gets very distorted throughout it, and it was just all very frustrating and also very intense, and I really liked that aspect of it, but it was also very frustrating at the same time. And in the number 1 spot, I'm sure a lot of you will agree with me on this character, and that is America Singer from the Selection Trilogy by Kiera Cass. And America is actually caught up in a love triangle between a prince called Maxon and a person who's just normal like her named Aspen. She grew up with Aspen, but then she ends up kind of falling in love with Prince Maxon, and she can't really decide on her feelings, and that is pretty much the entire plot line throughout these 3 novels. I do really love this series, and I thought it was just awesome reading it, but I know that a lot of people do not like this trilogy because it is just so frustrating. America will not make up her mind throughout the entirety of the series, and then she'll start thinking one thing and then she'll change her mind, and she is just one of the most indecisive characters that I've ever read, and that is definitely what makes her so frustrating. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Tell me down below who you think are some of the most frustrating characters you've ever read. I'm sure you have a lot of characters to choose from, especially if you read in the young adult genre. I'll see you guys next time. I'm gonna go get back to reading.